all set up, so we're in good shape.
I don't have any news.
He doesn't have bad news.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'll try to pry it out of her.
Do we have more chairs?
Because I keep eating.
Can we put them over there behind?
We go in front of the window.
We keep,
We have to keep, the access to the door has to be
Hey, Rick, do you mind taking some of the chairs and putting them
You can see
in,
all the
like,
times I've been
two
after her.
in front of each flag, set of flags?
So anyway, I'm gonna walk over to her
Yeah.
office tomorrow.
Thank you.
In front of each flag. Actually, Rick,
I've been after him as much as I could.
We got three right here.
Let me move my thing, they need to get.
Oh, do you? Okay. Terrific. Is that enough? Yeah, that's good.
There's probably four, probably enough.
Is it the light or is it, oh, I was like, how would you, is it?
Everybody ready?
Yeah, ready.
Okay, good. So good evening. It is 6:30 on April the 4th, and we are here for a public hearing to discuss the possible annexation of the Donovan Smith mobile home development. This is a public hearing and discussion regarding an ordinance of the mayor and the city council of the City of Lewes, Delaware regarding the annexation and rezoning of the property contiguous to the city's boundary known as the Donovan Smith Mobile Home Park, consisting of 21.6 plus or minus acres of land located on off Donovan's Road to R2 residential low density, Sussex County Tax Map 3-35-8.14-43.00. We are here tonight. We want to make sure that we have a chance to hear from everyone who would like to speak. But before we begin, we have a couple of people. Our legal counsel, Max Walton, would like to make some comments, and I believe the owner of the property's legal counsel would also like to make a presentation. So we'll hear from them first. And I would also make comment that we did receive one written comment today, which will be posted online if it isn't already. And it was from a former deputy mayor, Bonnie Osler, speaking in favor of the annexation. So with that, I would turn it over to Max.
So, council, we have not had an opportunity to do this. This is my first time, although I know everyone. What you're allowed to consider is that which is in the record, and so we're going to establish a little bit of a record before we start.
Yeah, I think your mic needs to come up a bit.
Yeah,
Just pull it closer to you.
Closer? Can you hear me?
Yeah. You know,
Can you hear Seth?
try that one.
try that one, yeah.
It's green.
Let's try this one. This one's much better. So we're here to create a record, and ultimately, I have labeled the following items to be put into the record as exhibits. Number one is the September 6th, 2017 request for annexation. Number two is the January 5th, 2018 report to council by the Annexation Committee. Number three is the applicable pages of the January 8th, 2018 Mayor and Council meeting accepting the report. Number four, the February 24th reaffirmation of the request for annexation from the property owner. Number five, pursuant to 22 Delaware Code Section 101, is a letter notifying impacted jurisdictions, and that's Sussex County. Number six, pursuant to 22 Delaware Code Section 101, is the letter notifying impacted jurisdictions, and that's the school district. Number seven is the March 14th, 2022 agenda setting the public hearing date. I'm using the agenda there because we don't have the minutes yet.
2022.
Pursuant to 22 Delaware Code, Section 101, a plan of services must be submitted, and a copy of the plan of services is Exhibit 8. Number 9 is the public notice and agenda. Number 10, the state code and the city code requires 15 days' notice to be given in a newspaper of general circulation. Number 10 is the copy of the ad that ran on March 18th, 2022 in the newspaper. Number 11, the Lewes Code requires that mailings be sent, well, the Lewes Code requires in certain instances, mailings be sent. I don't know that they're required in this particular instance, but nonetheless, they were sent. So we've made those part of the record, and that's Exhibit 11. Exhibit 12 is the draft resolution and ordinance for annexation. Number 13 is the draft ordinance to change the zoning to R2 of this particular property. Number 14 is a letter from Secretary Garvin and Secretary McGarrick in support of the annexation. Number 15 is the PowerPoint that the applicant has provided a copy of and who will be talking about tonight. And number 16 is the aforementioned comment of Bonnie Osler. So that is the record that we have received. If anyone has any papers that they would like to submit, I don't think we're going to see those, but I'd like to mark them as exhibit and make them part of the hearing materials.
Great, thank you very much. So, would you care to speak, Mr. Pardee? Thank you.
Pass these down.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council, city staff. My name is John Pardee. I'm an attorney at the law firm Baird & Dallas Stockton in Dover, and I represent Donovan Smith, MHP LLC, which is the owner of Donovan Smith and Pardee.
We can't hear you, so you need,
Is that better?
no? But maybe we need the handheld mic, Anne Marie.
Is that better?
Much better, thank you.
Sorry.
Start over.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and city staff. My name is John Pardee. I'm an attorney with the law firm Baird & Dallas Brockstead in Dover, and I represent Donovan Smith MHP LLC, which is the owner of the Donovan Smith Mobile Home Park. Thank you for the opportunity and indeed the privilege to speak with you tonight about Donovan Smith. I'm not sure if there are any Tar Heel fans or Jayhawk fans in the room tonight, but in the interest of time and efficiency, I will try to move through my presentation as quickly as possible and ask that you hold your questions until I conclude my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any and all questions you might have. I understand we also have a translator tonight, and so I will pause periodically to let her catch up. And so at this point, you have the first page of my PowerPoint on the screen. I'll give her an opportunity to make whatever remarks she may want to make for the benefit of our Spanish-speaking participants.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Eli, voy a estar traduciéndole al señor John Pardee, que es representante del parqueadero de Donovan. Va a ir pasando su presentación y si tienen algunas preguntas habrá al final para que ustedes las pregunten. Ahorita va a empezar su presentación con la primera página del proyecto de anexación.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So as you Donovan Smith Mobile Home Park is located on the west side of Donovan Road, just outside yet contiguous to the City of Lewes. Next slide, please.
So, el parqueadero de Donovan está localizado en el oeste de la calle Donovan Road, que está en las afueras de la ciudad de Lewes.
Donovan Smith Mobile Home Park is comprised of 127 home lots, all presently utilizing private on-site septic and water utility services.
So, Donovan Smith está comprometido con 127 lotes de casas que ahorita tienen agua privada y servicio privado de basura.
Next slide, please. The existing sewer and water utility systems are failing.
Ahorita existe alcantarillas y sistemas de agua que ya no están funcionando muy bien.
Next slide, please. For several years now, DOLEC, the Division of Health and Social Services, the BPW, have been working with the property owner and its lender to connect the community to the BPW's public sewer and water utility systems.
So, ahorita el sistema de DENREC y DHSS han estado trabajando con el dueño de la propiedad y su prestamista para conectar a la comunidad con los sistemas públicos de alcantarillas y sistema de agua.
In 2021, Donovan Smith Mobile Home Park was chosen as the pilot project for Governor Carney's Clean Water Initiative for underserved communities, and $5.6 million to fund the project was approved utilizing loans and grants from the CWI.
El gobernador Carney escogió este proyecto formando con una fundación de 5.6 millones como dinero del gobierno, como le había explicado a una participante temprano, es dinero que no tendrían que pagar para atrás, sería dado al parqueadero.
A memorandum of understanding has been negotiated among DENREC, I said earlier, division, its Department of Health and Social Services, the BPW, the owner, and the owner's lender, whereby the lender will consent and subordinate its existing mortgage debt of $5 million. The owner will pay a $318,575.40 impact fee to the BPW, and the owner will pay all interest on the loan grants until forgiven, and for a period of 20 years, the owner will pay all of the residents' sewer and water usage charges. The owner cannot increase rents beyond CPI, and the owner cannot change the use of the property.
Se ha negociado un memorando de entendimiento entre DENREC y el DHS, en cual el prestamista consistirá y subordinará su deuda hipotecaria existente de 5 millones. El propietario pagará una tarifa de impacto de $318,574 a lo que es el bordo de uso público, y el propietario pagará todos los intereses de los préstamos y sobrevencias hasta que sean condenados y durante un periodo de 20 años. El propietario pagará todos los cargos por uso de agua, alcantarillas de los residentes, y el propietario no podrá aumentar los alquileres más allá de lo que la ciudad apruebe. El propietario no puede cambiar el uso de la propiedad sin la aprobación del consejo.
Next slide, please. Annexation of Donovan Smith Mobile Home Park into the City of Lewes is appropriate and warranted because, one, the City Council previously approved in January of 2018 the City Annexation Committee's report unanimously recommending annexation. Two, annexation of the community is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. Three, annexation of the community will advance the city's affordable housing goals. Four, absent annexation, the connection project is not economically viable and will therefore not occur. Five, the risks and costs of annexation are less than the risks and costs of the status quo. Six, as enabled via annexation, the project will improve the quality of life for existing and future residents of both the community and the city generally. And last, it's the right thing to do.
Pues el proyecto de anexación fue y está recomendado por el comité de la ciudad que se forme la anexación entre la ciudad y el parque de Donovan. También están recomendando el proyecto que económicamente viable se puede hacer y aparte haría mejor calidad de vida para todos los del parqueadero.
Thank you. Next slide, please. The City Council previously approved in January of 2018 the City Annexation Committee's report unanimously recommending annexation. The Zoning Subcommittee concluded that, quote, from a zoning perspective, the advantages to the City of Lewes of annexing the Donovan Smith parcel outweigh the disadvantages, period, end quote. The Zoning Subcommittee thus recommended annexation with an R2 zoning classification. The Services Subcommittee concluded that annexation will cause the city to incur additional costs for trash collection and code enforcement, but those costs will, quote, be offset to some degree by the property taxes, end quote, semicolon. That subcommittee also concluded that the building department can handle any increase in workload and that annexation would not add significantly to the police department's workload and there would be no impact on street maintenance, fire, or EMS services. The Utilities Subcommittee concluded that, quote, "The proposed annexation is advantageous for both the city and DSMPH," end quote, finding that there would be no change in electric service, no stormwater issues were identified that would require remediation, and the BPW has the capacity to provide sewer and water services without any need to increase city or BPW staff. And finally, the Finance Working Group found that annexation would result in an estimated income to the city of approximately $7,100 annually, although that may not be sufficient to cover recurring costs to the city.
So, el subcomité de servicios concluyó que la anexación incurrirá costos adicionales para recolección de tres y el cumplimiento de código. El departamento puede manejar el aumento de trabajo que sería. También no miran la desventaja de que subirá precios o problemas a la ciudad. También el grupo de finanzas estaba anunciando que la anexación resultaría en un estimado de 7,106 anuales que entraría a la ciudad para beneficio de la ciudad.
That's it? I thought I said a lot more than that. Okay. Next slide, please. I got to brush up on my Spanish. Annexation of the community is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. First, the comprehensive plan indicates that, quote, "Lewes is interested in expanding city boundaries in order to have more control over surrounding development and, where possible, to add areas that are now served by the Lewes Board of Public Works." And further, the plan indicates that the city would like to have more control over surrounding development to protect its well field. Second, map 11 of the comprehensive plan, showing the city's annexation areas, clearly shows the community property as located entirely within the plan's targeted annexation area. Third, as the language of the comprehensive plan and the designations reflected in its maps both have, quote, "the force and effect of law," end quote. Mr. Walton can explain that to you. It's found at 22 Delaware Code Section 702D. There is a strong argument to be made that the city is legally, not just morally, I would submit, obligated to annex the community property into the city limits. Madam Translator.
El plan de anexación de la ciudad indica que Lewes está interesado en expandir los límites de la ciudad para tener más control sobre el desarrollo a sus alrededores. Lewes está interesado en expandir sus límites para tener control sobre el campo de pozos también. El mapa 11 del plan integral muestra que las áreas de anexación de la ciudad muestra claramente que la propiedad está ubicada completamente dentro de la área de anexación como en plan. Duda el lenguaje, aquí está escrito que en el verso 22 del C702 se puede argumentar con fuerza y la ciudad es obligado legalmente a anexar la propiedad.
Next slide, please. Annexation of the community will advance the city's affordable housing goals. The city's housing plan, quote, "recognizes the importance of affordable housing within the greater Lewes area," end quote, and further, that the city, quote, "is willing, especially in conjunction with redevelopment or annexation proposals, to explore opportunities to meet residents' housing needs that are consistent with defined city priorities." Second, if the provisions of the comprehensive plan are not to ring hollow, the prospect of annexing the community would seem to be a perfect opportunity for the city to demonstrate that it does, in fact, quote, "recognize the importance of affordable housing within the greater Lewes area," end quote.
El plan de vivienda de la ciudad reconoce la importancia de viviendas accesibles, viviendo dentro del área metropolitana de Lewes y además que la ciudad está dispuesta especialmente en conjugación a la reurbanización a la anexación, propuestas para explorar oportunidades para satisfacer las necesidades de las viviendas de los residentes, que son constantes y son propiedad y definidos como la ciudad. En el plan 46-47. Si las disposiciones del plan integral no suenan, las perspectivas de la anexación parecerá una oportunidad perfecta para que la ciudad demuestre de lo que está hecho. Reconoce la importancia de la vivienda alquilada dentro de la área metropolitana.
Next slide, please. Absent annexation, the project is not economically viable and will not occur. Please allow me to explain why. First, the usage rates charged by the BPW for sewer and water utility services provided to properties located outside the City of Lewes limits are 50% higher than the usage rates charged by the BPW for sewer and water utility services provided to properties located inside of the city limits. That is, if the City of Lewes were not to annex the property into the city limits, the usage rates that would be charged by the BPW would be 50% higher than the rates that would be charged by the BPW if the community were annexed into the city limits. Second, the owner of the community cannot afford to pay 50% more for all sewer and water usage consumed by the residents of the community for 20 years and at the same time meet all of its existing obligations plus all of the other financial obligations under the MOU. Therefore, absent annexation, neither the owner nor the lender will sign the MOU, and accordingly, the construction project will not happen.
Sin la anexación, el proyecto no es económicamente viable. No se llevará a cabo. Tarifas cobradas por lo que es el BPW por los servicios públicos de alcantarilla y agua subirá y por las propiedades ubicadas fuera de los límites, la ciudad de Lewes sería el 50% de tarifas cobradas hacia el servicio. El Consejo Municipal de la ciudad de Lewes, si se negara a anexar la propiedad a los límites y las tarifas de uso que cobraría el BPW serán más altas que las tarifas que cobrarían combinado con la ciudad, si se anexara la ciudad. El propietario de la propiedad no puede permitirse pagar un 50% más por el consumo de agua y el consumo de alcantarillas por los residentes durante 20 años, al mismo tiempo cumplir con todas sus obligaciones de deuda hipotecaria existentes y otras obligaciones financieras.
Next slide, please. The risks and costs of annexation are less than the risks and costs of the status quo. First, the connection project eliminates a significant environmental liability risk for the entire area. For as long as raw sewage continues to leach into the soil and groundwater underlying the community, there is a serious risk of contamination to groundwater supplying the city's well fields. Second, annexation subjects the community to the city's building codes and land use regulations, giving the city the ability to control what happens along its western gateway. Otherwise, the community would remain subject to county governance. Third, any marginal increase in cost to the city will be de minimis. As borne out by the Annexation Committee report, the costs of trash collection and code enforcement will be offset largely by property taxes as well as building permit fees and fines. The building department can handle any increase in workload. Annexation would not add significantly to the police department's workload, and there will be no impact on street maintenance, fire, or EMS services.
Los riesgos y costos de anexión son menores que los riesgos y costos de no hacer el proyecto. El proyecto de conexión elimina un importante riesgo de responsabilidad ambiental para la área de Ninfe, mientras de las aguas residuales sin tratar continúan filtrándose en el suelo y aguas subterráneas subcanientes a la propiedad de Donovan. Existe un grave riesgo de contaminación de las aguas subterráneas que abstratan los campos de pozo de la ciudad. La anexación sujeta la propiedad a los códigos de construcción y reglamentos de los terrenos de la ciudad, que ayudará al final de cuentas lo que es el parqueadero. Los costos y traspaso cumplirán con el código y no aumentará trabajo ni para la policía, ni el departamento de limpieza, ni de construcción.
Next slide, please. Concerns about the floodplain and stormwater management are red herrings. First, the fact that a property may be located within a floodplain does not mean that a dwelling cannot be placed upon the property. Indeed, half the city of Lewes is located within the floodplain. Next slide, please. Go ahead and change the slide. It's got a picture I want to show. There we go. This is a picture of the floodplain taken from Delaware's floodplain management tool, which is found on the website or on the web, and this shows the general Lewes area. I think it's important to understand that 41 million Americans, including 2 members of your city council, live within a flood zone. Next slide, please. By contrast, less than 1/3 of the lots in the DS-MHP community are located within the floodplain. They're located in blue, you see on the screen. That is zone AE. And the homes along that side of the park are in flood zone AE. Next slide, please. However, as with all other dwellings that are placed upon properties located within a flood zone, Donovan Smith MHP is required to obtain and has always obtained elevation certificates demonstrating that the base floor elevation of the home is located above the floodplain. So you can place homes in the floodplain all day long. You just have to get an elevation certificate to prove that the base floor elevation is above the floodplain. Last point on this topic, the community is in full compliance with Sussex County's Conservation District stormwater management regulations. As noted in the Annexation Committee's report, quote, no stormwater issues were identified that require remediation, end quote. Next slide, please.
John.
I'm sorry. Give you a chance to catch up. Thank you, Max.
Las fotos que acaban de ver nomás estaban demostrando lo que es la área de Lewes, que tienen más probabilidades en tiempos de lluvia de que pues haya inundaciones. Pero la aplicación que enseño significa que todos los propietarios saben que pues hay un riesgo en esa área. Ellos están conscientes de que están en un nivel aprobado por la ciudad de que pues todavía pueden ayudarlos.
Good. Other points to consider. 1, as part of the connection project, all of the streets within the community will be replaced, which would afford better access and circulation for the residents as well as fire and EMS services. 2, electrical utility services already provided by the BPW. The owner of the community is willing to work with the BPW to repair and maintain electric utility service infrastructure as necessary and appropriate. 3, there is no genuine risk of liability to the city as a result of annexation. Rather, all liability risks fall instead on the property owner, Donovan Smith MHP LLC. 4, the owner of the community is willing to work with the city, the county, and the state to seek out additional funding sources for continued improvement of the quality of life in the community and to provide a backstop to the city. Some of the sources that are available could be the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the American Rescue Plan Act. There's money available through the state, the county, and the city from the ARPA. And as you may have noticed, the state of Delaware now has a $1 billion surplus. So there is plenty of money out there, and we're willing to work with the city to try and find a way to provide some source of funding that will help assure the city that this community will not become a liability to the city.
Otros puntos para considerar es de que con este proyecto las calles alrededor de la comunidad de Donovan Smith serán reemplazadas y ayudará para que los residentes puedan circular mejor, aparte de que en caso de una emergencia los bomberos, la ambulancia podría llegar con más facilidad. Lo que es la electricidad, creo que ustedes ya son parte del bordo de lo que es la parte de la ciudad, pero siendo parte del proyecto ayudará para que puedan reparar y hacer diferentes cambios si son necesarios. Y luego, aparte, no serían un riesgo, vamos a decir, para la ciudad incluirlos en este proyecto de anexación, porque ellos van a buscar fondos para que puedan ayudar a la ciudad para que no sean ellos todos responsables del costo.
Next slide, please. Finally, in conclusion, annexation of this community is really the right thing to do. There are a lot of people here behind me tonight that I think you're going to hear from, and for them, this project will be life-changing. It really, really will. You're going to hear some very sad stories about the quality of life that these people suffer. And my client bears a lot of the responsibility for that. I accept that. We're trying to fix it. And the only way it gets fixed is to annex this property, because otherwise it's just not financially possible to do. These folks need this to happen. They really do. And I think if you were to annex the community, you would see not just sewer and water, which are the two most critical aspects of infrastructure in any community. You'll see new roads. It will draw more people and therefore more investment and more interest, and it will really lift the boat, if you will, for these people. And so for all of those reasons, it's the right thing to do. Second, it honors the city's original commitment. Now, I know that the council has changed. There have been 4 seats changed since you first considered this back in 2018. But I will be honest with you, this was a surprise to me that the city was not on board with annexation. And we bear some of the blame for that, for not checking back. I accept that. But in 2018, when we first started talking about annexation, we got what we thought was a green light from the city. And it's been very long and painful, and I won't bore you with all the details, but it's not very easy to work with a bank that has a servicing agent that's governed by a trust and doesn't understand why they should subordinate their $5 million first priority mortgage loan for this project. That took probably a year to a year and a half to negotiate and get them on board. And there have been a lot of other hiccups along the way. I have to say that DENREC has been very cooperative, and so is the Department of Health and Social Services in seeking out funding. As you know, the grant program became available last summer, and that really spurred new life into the project. And so we started to get excited about the possibility that this thing could really happen. And we were putting together all of the pieces, and it wasn't until about 2 months ago that we were about to sign the MOU when Mike Hoffman, who's counsel to the BPW, said, well, I can't have my client sign it until we know what the city's going to do. And I thought, well, I thought the city was 100% on board. Is that a problem or a question? And as it turns out, it is. And I respect very much, I want to make this clear, I respect the right and duty of this council to review the question very seriously and make sure that you are making the best possible decision in the interest of your constituents, which is the existing city limits. You are absolutely right to be doing what you're doing, to be reviewing everything, asking lots of hard questions, crunching numbers, and making sure that this is, in fact, the best thing for the city of Lewes to do. I just wanted you to understand that there's a lot of process involved in this, and I'm sorry that we didn't come to you sooner and say, are you all okay with this? We should have done that, and I'm sorry. Let me let the translator catch up.
Lo que él está diciendo es de que el proyecto de anexación sería la manera correcta para formarlos parte de la comunidad. Ellos lo que están formando es de que les haría ventaja a todos los que viven allí, todos los que están presentes, para que puedan tener mejores carreteras, mejor vivienda. Él lo que estaba explicando es de que él ha escuchado muchas historias, ha conocido mucha gente que vive allí, que han tenido situaciones muy terribles que les ha ocurrido en el tiempo que han vivido ahí, y él toma responsabilidad por parte de su cliente, que el cliente también tiene mucha de la responsabilidad. Él también lo que está anunciando es de que gracias a las ayudas que abrieron el año pasado de DENREC, también formó un programa de becas que ha podido ayudarlos, pero que cuando ya quisieron procesar con el proyecto fue parado por su cliente porque no estaban 100% aprobados por la ciudad de Lewes. Él ahorita por eso él está presente, y él quería que pues pedirles disculpas a todos y pedirles disculpas también al consejo, que no vinieron más pronto para poder pelear por este proyecto. Pero ahorita el proyecto, pues ya, por eso están aquí hoy en la noche, para que ellos vean las pruebas, vean todo lo que él también les está explicando de parte del cliente de Donovan.
It sounds a lot more beautiful when you say it. Thank you. I'll be brief. You've heard these points before. Just to wrap up, annexation is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. It advances the city's affordable housing goals. Absent annexation, the project is economically infeasible and will not happen. The risks and costs of annexation are less than the risks and costs of the status quo. And lastly, as enabled by annexation, the project will improve the quality of life for existing and future residents of not just this community, but also the city. I'll let the translator catch up, and then I'm happy to take any questions.
Nomás está también, pues los puntos que ya hizo durante la presentación, que si no se hace la anexación, pues obvio, el proyecto no se va a hacer. Aparte de que hay menos riesgos si se hace la anexación que si no se hace, basado a lo que el señor había explicado de las ventajas que van a tener los residentes del área de Donovan. Aparte de que las viviendas, la área, sería mejor calidad de vida para los que ya están presentes allí y los que tendrían en futuro, no nomás para los residentes de esa área, aparte también para la ciudad.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to answer any
I
questions.
think there may be some questions here from the table. We'll take those first.
Mayor, may I, just for ease of, why don't we do a question, have John answer, and then have the translator?
Well, that's what I was going to suggest. Either we have you translate the question, or we just do the question and answer together, okay?
Is that okay?
That-
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so you want to do it as the question and answer together?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's perfect, okay, thank you. So, Andrew, you had some questions?
I'll start with a couple of questions.
Sure.
Thanks for coming, John. So just to be clear, if the rate, absent annexation, were the same rate as the residents were getting, the park owner would go forward?
So right now, the costs of sewer and water service.
Correct. So as long as that delta was in line with what the residents were paying, it works, and he would sign the agreement to move forward, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if there were another way,
Hold on. There's several questions. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt.
Just to repeat the question, you want to make sure, I want to make sure I translate
sure,
that.
yeah, so my question is, the only thing holding the owner back from signing the MOU to move forward with the BPW's hookup is the rate itself.
Yes, sir.
So this follow-up question to that is, if there was another way that the rate could be brought down to meet the existing city rate, it would work, and the owner would be able to move forward, correct?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, so that's, just wanted to get that on
And
the
the
record.
owner, Donovan.
Donovan Smith.
Okay.
Okay.
So, la pregunta del alcalde es de que lo que está
I have lots of
deteniendo.
questions, Ted.
La pregunta del alcalde es de que ¿qué está deteniendo al dueño de Donovan para seguir y firmar el último contrato? Lo que le está deteniendo es básicamente lo que es la paga, lo que pagarían ahorita, lo que ellos les están diciendo que no suban a lo que el dueño de Donovan quiere que, dónde esté el nivel de pago. So, la segunda pregunta fue de que si hay manera de que el nivel de pago quede un poco más bajo, si firmaría lo que es el dueño de Donovan.
You mentioned, the other question I have, just to confirm, so everyone's, that the Lewes BPW controls their own rate. The City of Lewes has nothing to do with determining what rates are charged in city or out of city.
That's exactly right, and that's a good point.
Okay.
You said B.
The Lewes Board of Public Works controls their own rates. The City of Lewes municipal government does not control or influence their rates.
Okay. Lo que es el bordo público de trabajo de Lewes es separado de la ciudad. So, el costo obvio, anual, va basado al costo de vida y eso ellos no lo controlan. So, si ellos subirían el precio, aumentaría, pero basado a ellos. Ellos no tienen control sobre esa parte de la ciudad. Es que la ciudad de Lewes es un comité, vamos a decir, y lo que es la área pública de Lewes es otra, que es el que se controla de los costos de vida de rentas y pagos.
Sí. Okay, thank you for that. So the other questions I have relate to with what the residents know about the impacts of annexation, meaning that they will be under our code. And you mentioned that homes can indeed be placed in the floodplain.
Yes, sir.
According to our code, and I'll point you to code 19796, and this goes down to Part 2, manufactured home parks. And within that, first it talks about lot coverage of 40%. It talks about minimum lot coverage or lot sizes of 50 foot wide open spaces. It talks about the need to have 2 off-street parking spaces. It also says that all placement of new manufactured homes must be located outside of the flood hazard area. So what I'm getting at is correct. If we choose to annex you in, you will come in as a non-conforming use. Day one, you're good to go. As you need repairs, and as those repairs may elevate beyond a certain level, then these conditional uses come in. The other thing that they may, or maybe you aren't aware of either, Donovan Smith Mobile Home Park is situated in our excellent recharge area. Recently, we passed an amended ordinance which speaks to our source water protection overlay area. And what it says is any redevelopment of that area of over 1 acre would be limited to 20%. So that's the implication to the future. That's 20, 30 years down the line, but that should be recognized, that you are within our code now. Our code is very stringent here in Lewes, very stringent. So I just wanted to make sure that this residents themselves are aware of that.
Are aware that they would fall under
The Lewes City Code,
City Code.
which is available, if they want to look up, if they Google Lewes Code 360,
V60.
360, like 360 degrees, Lewes Code 360, they will be able to find our code.
So lo que el alcalde quiere que sepan es que ya estando debajo de anexación, caerían en lo que es los códigos de lo que es la ciudad de Lewes. Ya no serían códigos de las afueras, basado a cómo están ahorita. Ahorita como están todos los residentes están bien, pero con el tiempo, si necesitarían ciertos arreglos, ciertos detalles, tendrían que hacerlo basado al código de la ciudad de Lewes. Para los residentes que lo quieren buscar, lo pueden buscar en Google, lo que es la ciudad de Lewes, Delaware, lo que es Lewes 360, right? That's all they
Code.
Lewes Code, so Lewes Code 360. Lo buscan en Google y ahí les explicarán detalles lo que son los códigos de la ciudad. Y como él dice, la ciudad de Lewes hay ciertas cositas que son buenas y ciertas cositas que son más estrictos, de áreas de estacionamiento, a áreas de acres, a ciertos costos, depende de los nuevos residentes en un futuro. Obvio, ahorita no les afectaría, pero unos 15, 20 años en un futuro.
And one more thing to that is Lewes, in addition to property taxes, we have other fees that come up, and one of them that we are considering is called a resiliency fee. So I just want you to know that there are other fees that the city, there's one that it's not in place yet, but we're considering a resiliency fee. Yes. And so just want you to be aware that there are, whilst the ownership can increase your rents, there are additional costs that could be coming to you as a resident by coming into Lewes as a city, you know, as a resident of the city of Lewes.
Como residente de la anexación, así como lo que es residentes de la ciudad, a veces salen ciertas fianzas. Obvio, cada quien paga su costo de donde vive, su lote, pero si llegara un tiempo en un año que meterían una fianza de, como ellos están viendo, de meter una fianza que se llama Resiliency, pueden mandarles a cobrar a cada residente de lo que sería el parqueadero ese costo. Aparte de las taxas del año, puede haber otros costos de repente.
Mr. Williams, if I may just briefly address that, you make some excellent points, very well taken. It impacts my client as well, because all of the existing homes, if the property were annexed, would come in as non-conforming. But any vacant lots, and there are many vacant lots out there, would have to comply with existing city code. As well, any home that is abandoned or removed, in order for a new home to come in, those would also have to comply. So while it's, I think, important to let the residents who are here tonight know that their existing homes will be grandfathered, any new homes, whether it's replacing a former home or a new home on a presently vacant lot, will have to comply with city code.
So es lo nomás que lo que haga claro. Los residentes que ya están allí, ya serían, vamos a decir, todas las reglas que ya tienen, las van a respetar. Si usted algún tiempo, en 5 años, quiere comprar una nueva mobile home y ponerla en la área en la que está ahorita, tendrían que ser las nuevas reglas de lo que sería la ciudad de Lewes. Obvio, los lotes que están solos, los lotes que tienen casas abandonadas, si alguien compraría ese lote, tienen que seguir con las reglas de lo que es el comité y la ciudad de Lewes.
And the last thing I would just like to say is I've had an opportunity to meet a few of the residents of Donovan Smith, and it has nothing to do with the individuals. In fact, if it had only to do with the individuals annexing in, there would be no question in my mind. You all are excellent citizens and, from what I understand, good neighbors to one another.
So él nomás quiere tomarlo en claro que ha tomado el tiempo hoy para poder hablar con ciertos residentes de lo que es el parqueadero de Donovan, y él quiere aclarar que si fuera nomás por los residentes, sin pensarlo, él hacía la anexación sin cuestiones. Pero él nomás quiere que ustedes, de lo que él ha escuchado, son buenos vecinos y buenos residentes en esa área.
Tim, did you have questions?
I do have a couple of questions. Thank you. How many lots are presently occupied in the park?
I believe, I don't have an exact number, but I believe there are approximately somewhere between 85 and 90 lots are presently occupied, and the balance are vacant.
And so the delta between 85 to 90 to 127 is what is the capacity? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it your client's intention to fill the park to its capacity?
We would absolutely love to do that, recognizing, as Mr. Williams pointed out, that we'll have to comply with code requirements from the city, which may be difficult. But if we're able to comply, we would like to place a home on every lot. We believe that with sewer and water and new roads, the community will be more attractive and we'll be able to fill it. But we may have some difficulties. We acknowledge that.
Speaking to your client's largest objection. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I apologize.
Él nomás la pregunta que él tenía es de cuántos lotes están ahorita ocupados en el parqueadero de Donovan. El que está representando al cliente de Donovan dice que hay de 85 a 90 lotes ocupados de los 127 lotes disponibles. Ellos lo que quieren es llenar el parqueadero si pudieran, y anexando la comunidad, que hubieran nuevos clientes que quisieran entrar al parqueadero. Y luego la pregunta, pues obvio, con las reglas y todo lo del COVID y autorización de la ciudad, pues tendrían que ver cómo podrían llenar los lotes vacíos que están ahí.
Thank you. Speaking to the, I believe you described it as your client's largest objection to the present MOU, it has to do with the out-of-city water rate. And that 50% additive is something that he is objecting to and finds that he won't be able to meet that obligation.
Yeah,
Is
and if
that
I,
fair?
yes, if I may be perfectly candid, the cost of the status quo is less than the cost of connecting without annexation. So if we connect, but we have to pay the higher rates,
Right.
that's more expensive than what we're doing right now. So my client would make the decision
Yeah.
that any businessman would in that circumstance,
Right.
and
And frankly, what you're doing now is not satisfactory.
I agree.
Okay, so we agree on that.
Whoa, whoa, let her-
Thank you. Please.
If they connect, can you repeat what you said? If they connect without annexation.
Sure. So if we connect to BPW sewer and water, but we are not annexed, the cost, that is paying the sewer and water charges for all of the residents for 20 years, tips the scale. And that would be more expensive than just maintaining the status quo, where we're pumping and repairing on an ad hoc basis, which I agree is not a good solution.
So, lo que él está preguntando es de que el cliente, de lo que es el dueño de Donovan, la única razón que él está viendo y analizando lo que es el proyecto es el costo. Si al entrar aquí a la anexación el costo podría subir, pero para el cliente, lo que es el dueño de Donovan, el 50%. Pero si ellos entraran a sin anexación a lo que es no es el proyecto, si entrarían lo que es a la ciudad y que agarrarían agua y alcantarilla de la ciudad sin anexación, el costo sería mucho más para el cliente y para el residente. Eso no lo haría, obvio, el cliente no del señor, del dueño de Donovan, no querría entrar a ese proyecto porque pues sería mucho dinero perdido para él como dueño y pues para ustedes como residentes.
And did that include my statement too?
Can you repeat your statement? I did say a partial of it. I just want to make sure that
My statement was that the status quo was not satisfactory.
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Another point that I would like to clarify here is with respect to your description of the conversation that the BPW solicitor, Michael Hoffman, had with you when he shared with you that the BPW would not sign the MOU. What you need to know and what the community needs to understand is that in the agreement, the relationship between the BPW, which is a separate organization, separate corporation, chartered separately from the City of Lewes, there is a working agreement between these two bodies, between the city and the BPW. Am I going too fast? Okay. And in that MOU, it is required that whenever a property owner or developer who is located outside the city limits and desires to have city services in the form of water and sewer, that they have to come to the council and request permission. They can already have had conversation with the property owner and have preliminary discussions and, an understanding of what it looks like, but they cannot proceed with actually putting shovels in the ground, putting infrastructure in, until the council grants that permission. The BPW came to the city council it was included in our packet for our February 14th.
March.
I'm sorry, March 14th council meeting, and we acted on it at that meeting, granting the BPW permission to sign the MOU. There is nothing keeping the BPW from signing, nor, as far as the city's concerned, the other four parties to this agreement. We've met our obligation. I encourage you to have Mr. Burnham sign the MOU, or whoever, his bank, whomever is in that position.
Before you answer.
So, lo que el señor del consejo está declarando es de que aunque el dueño del proyecto, Donovan, y lo que sería el proyecto de BPW, que es una organización aparte de la ciudad, aunque ellos hayan llegado a un acuerdo de la anexación, ellos tienen por obligación venir enfrente del consejo y presentar el plan que ellos tienen. Sin aprobación del consejo, porque son parte de la ciudad de Lewes, no puede seguir el proyecto. Lo que él está recomendando es de que el dueño de Donovan se siente con las personas indicadas y firme este proyecto para que pues pueda beneficiar los residentes.
Mr. Ritzert, if I may address that
Please.
just briefly. You are absolutely correct. I don't disagree with anything that you say, and the MOU does not require annexation. Doesn't say anything about annexation. And so if in my comments I suggested that the BPW was relying or waiting to see what the city said about annexation, then that's not what I meant to say. Mr. Hoffman's conversation with me, he was very clear that the BPW had to get consent from the city to extend sewer and water outside the city limits. That's it, separate and apart from annexation. So you're 100% correct. The problem is that connecting without annexation is just not economically viable. And that's not the BPW's problem. It's not your problem. It's our problem. But the point is that the MOU does not require annexation.
Please.
So, él lo que quiere aclarar es de que el proyecto que ellos han tenido en mente de conectarles con las alcantarillas y lo que es el agua de la ciudad no necesita anexación. La razón que el dueño de Donovan quiere anexación es de que el costo sería menos para él como dueño. Si él lo hace afuera de la anexación, el costo sería el 50% más y pues a él como negociante no sería un buen proyecto para él. Aunque es necesario, aclarando.
Is that it? Have you approached the BPW and engaged them in any discussion about rates?
We have not.
Okay. Is it your intention to do so?
If the annexation is not approved, then we would have no choice, because unless they change their rates, we can't and won't sign the MOU.
Right. But you do understand that the rates are in fact in the wheelhouse of the BPW. And in fact, it is not something that we shape. We do not shape that policy. We do not shape the rate structure in any way.
Understood. Mr. Williams' point exactly, that
Right.
the city cannot control what the BPW charges.
Right. And, I'm sorry.
No, lo que el consejo está avisando es de que le está preguntando al representante es de que si ellos han buscado al bordo público de Lewes, que es la otra organización, para ver si ellos podrían arreglar las calles afuera de la anexación. Y lo que contestó el representante es de que no han ido ni han tomado el tiempo de hacer una junta con ellos todavía. Lo que el consejo dijo es de que las tarifas que están impuestas, ellos nomás quieren que estén conscientes todos que hay ciertas tarifas que se ponen cuando están adentro de la ciudad.
You have more questions, Jim?
I'll make one other, it's a statement, and that, my statement at this time is that annexation is a function of city government. It's a function of local government, and it is not something that can be forced upon the city. It cannot be forced upon us by the state or the county or any other body. This is an exercise of local government making a decision and the council has that responsibility of making that decision.
So, la anexación es una función de gobierno. Él lo que quiere aclarar es de que lo que es el consejo de aquí de la ciudad de Lewes es el que toma la decisión si es que dejan entrar o no, aunque sea una función de gobierno afuera, porque es una parte del gobierno aquí.
Thank you.
Khalil, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have just one quick question here, and it's more of clarification for you, Mr. Pardee. You state here that there is no genuine risk of liability to the city as a result of annexation. All liability risks fall instead to the owner of DSM PHP Park. Could you, I know that's been a concern from a lot of people, potential current and future liability to the city. So I think I'd like to, have you amplify on that a little bit.
Sure. Thank you for the question, because it allows me to make a point that I neglected to put in my presentation, and that is that
John, why don't we have the question
Sorry.
translated? Sorry to interrupt.
No, I appreciate it.
La pregunta del consejo es de que si él nomás quiere volver a una aclaración de que así como el representante había puesto que no hay ningún riesgo real para la ciudad anexar la comunidad de Donovan. Y iba a responder.
So I had a conversation with my client about this because I wanted to know what kind of liability insurance coverage do you have? And I will confirm this in writing following the hearing tonight. But I believe the answer was that they have a $2 million, $5 million comprehensive general liability policy. So there's a $5 million umbrella that covers any and all hazards or liabilities. Now that can include someone gets hurt on the property, there's property damage, flooding, what have you, damage to a home, anything like that. And just as a matter of general civil law, by annexing the property, the city would not be assuming any financial liability. That liability lies with the property owner. Now, there may be things that residents do on the property that would impose liability on them if they engaged in some intentional or negligent act that hurt somebody, then, potentially there's a claim against the residents. But for all practical purposes, the type of liability incidents that you would encounter on a property are going to fall on the property owner. And I'm not aware of any statute or case law that would impose any degree of civil liability upon a municipality merely by the fact that the property happens to be located in the municipality, absent some affirmative act by the city. Now, Mr. Walton can tell you all about the Municipal Tort Claims Liability Act, which basically exempts municipalities from virtually any kind of liability. So I'm going to stop there and let the translator catch up.
So, él lo que está aclarando es de que la razón que la conversación que él tuvo con el dueño de Donovan, los riesgos que tomaría como residente de Donovan, no caerían sobre la responsabilidad de lo que es la ciudad de Lewes. Ellos lo que están diciendo es de que como cualquier residente, cosas que dañarían la área donde viven o la propiedad caerían en responsabilidad con el dueño de Donovan. Él volvió a aclarar que no, la ciudad de Lewes no tomaría responsabilidad de cosas o daños que pasarían en lo que es el parqueadero de Donovan.
Does that answer your question?
It does indeed. Thank you.
Carol, do you have questions?
No, he asked what I was going to ask.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Pardee.
Let me just say in closing, this is not an easy decision, I get that, and I just want to thank you very much for your time, your attention, and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'd like to move to public input. We'd like to hear from you, members of the public. We'd ask that you come to the podium, identify yourself by your name and address, and we'd ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And we do have a timer who will be keeping track of the time. She'll give you a 30-second warning so that you can know that you need to sum up your comments. But we'd like to hear from you, the public, and I think we have many residents here from the Donovan Smith property who may want to speak tonight. So we'd like to open it up, and please identify yourself. Just raise your hand. We'll get to as many, all of you as you want to speak.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a quick clarification?
Sure.
If we need translation,
Wes, we'll do that.
we'll do that after, and then we'll not count against your 3 minutes.
Right, that will not, yeah,
Okay, and then, so I think we need to let her translate.
Right,
Of course.
translate his instructions.
right.
Ahorita, ahorita va a abrir el piso para cualquier residente que tenga alguna pregunta, alguna duda. Puede levantar su mano y puede pasar a preguntar. Tienen 3 minutos para hacer su pregunta y luego pues ya yo le traduciría aquí al consejo para que les daría su respuesta. Pueden decir su nombre.
Name and address, yes.
Su nombre y su dirección para que ellos sepan de qué área vienen.
All right, Mr. Frank, please.
My name is Thierry Poiret. I'm a resident now in Lewes. I live on Harborview Road, number 19. This is near the canal for the people who don't know exactly where it is located. I must say that when I came to this meeting, I thought I had a relatively clear opinion of what was going on, but the amount of information which has been given this evening is absolutely overwhelming. As a resident of the city, my concerns are generally focused on 2 things. First, that the management of the city is fiscally responsible. In other words, that over a long-term perspective, the city doesn't assume financial liabilities which would cause the taxes in the city to go up beyond a reasonable amount, which in my view is basically the cost of living. I think you mentioned the inflation index earlier, something like that. My second concern is always what is the impact of the decisions that are made in terms of the environment in Lewes. Now, with this particular case, the property being located at the border of the city, if I think in terms of environmental impact, my concern initially was that the site didn't have the proper storm management facilities, and that I hadn't seen or heard anything from the city council as to how, once the property is integrated in the city, if it is integrated into the city, how this potential risk was going to be mitigated and who would pay for that. And so this is a concern that I have.
Yeah. Do you mind pausing for the translator?
Yes, sorry, and I sympathize with the interpreter, actually, because I've been an interpreter myself, so.
So, él nomás tiene él como residente de la ciudad de Lewes, él tiene nomás 2 preguntas. La pregunta primera al consejo sería, ¿cómo afectaría el ambiente alrededor de lo que es sorry.
I said the tax impact.
La primera sería cómo impactaría los impuestos. En general, lo que sería el poblado de la ciudad y a todos los alrededor. And then the
The environment.
Y cómo afectaría la zona ambiental alrededor de lo que sería la área del parqueadero.
Okay, so these are general concerns.
Nomás son
that-
dos
that I had.
dos preocupaciones de él que él tenía en mente cuando
Now,
él vino.
in this particular case, we have an additional layer of complexity which comes into play, which is the social impact. We currently have a situation which is totally unacceptable. I would go a little bit further than the comments made by Tim Ritzert earlier, which were maybe a little less direct, but I think it's absolutely outrageous that there is today in the community, even if it's not within the city limits, but under the jurisdiction of Sussex County, that there is a site which is maintained in conditions which are basically unsalubrious, and that the deal that is put to the city council is that either these conditions are going to remain the way they are, meaning that the property owner considers it totally feasible
I'm
for
sorry,
him.
time has expired.
Okay.
Sorry, I've been a little
Wrap
long.
your comments up, please.
Okay, so bottom line, I feel the project at this point is so complex that it might be beneficial for all the parties to investigate a little bit more what can be done before making a decision. I feel that it's not quite ripe and that the level of information of the people who live in Lewes is not at the level where it should be to make an informed decision or informed comments.
Okay.
And at the same time, I don't want the project to be delayed unduly if indeed it is emergent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to translate?
El señor nomás quiere que el consejo tome en consideración, así como toda la gente presente, toda la información que se recibió esta noche, antes de tomar una decisión acuerdo a lo que ellos recibieron hoy, basado a lo que ya sabían del proyecto.
I would only add one comment. I think Mr. Pardee explained this in his presentation, that they have identified that there are state and federal monies available under ARPA and others to address some of the stormwater management issues that you addressed. Okay?
So, lo que dice el alcalde es de que él tenía una pregunta como de cómo acomodar ciertos problemas en caso de tormenta. El dinero que ellos recibirían serían por becas dadas por el gobierno que están disponibles en este momento.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Please raise your hand and come to the podium.
¿Alguien más quisiera hablar? ¿Puede levantar la mano y pasar al podio?
Yes, sir. All the way in the back. Come on up. Ma'am? Couldn't identify. Thank you. Good to see you again.
My name is Terry Saunders, and I am the Public Affairs Officer of the Donovan Smith Homeowners Association. We live at 1663 Forest Street, Lewes. It was rather disheartening considering that we were part of the first annexation conversation. This is such a 180-degree shift. I would like to ask you what prevents us from being worthy of being annexed into Lewes. I thought I heard dollars and cents. You're going to cost us money. We have been having trouble with the entire situation, Delaware, DNREC, about our sewer program for years. And right now we have a suit in that's because we have had unpermitted septic for 24 years. Mm-hmm. So how much money does that cost? We looked at that wonderful map of the waterways of the Lewes, and we do live right on the wetland, and all that sewer that has been running for 24 years has been going right down the Roosevelt Inlet and right onto the beach. So are we worthy to be annexed into the city of Lewes? It's not an issue of dollars and cents. We have about 600 people. We pay rent on our lot, but they all have mortgages here. Not only that, this was a very important retirement spot. Donovan's has been around for at least 50 years. A lot of the people are weekenders or have inherited their homes. We have young families here. We have retirees on fixed income. And the only thing I thought I heard was dollars and cents, dollars and cents. I guess we don't have as much money as the two dips that's coming in? That's what it feels like. I have been picking up trash from Mr. Burnham's property since 2009. He has no mercy. You're 5 minutes late with your rent, you've got a problem. He has let this go on forever. DNREC has let this go on forever. And I understand the issue of you don't have to be annexed to have clean water and sewer. I was a child of a diplomat where I lived 50 years ago, they had clean water and sewer. So this to me is completely unacceptable. And then you talk about dollars and cents. Well, here's dollars and cents. We retirees, we clean your house, we have your store, we manage your stores, we cook your food, but we're not good enough to be annexed to Lewes. We crave the structure. We love Lewes. We are part of Lewes. And whether you annex us or not, we're still part of Lewes. You just can't turn your head on this mainly elderly brown and black community. I've been coming here, my husband's been shooting fish here since, 30 years on the wall? And do you know why we're at Donovan's? Because we had a very bold Delawarean that told the management office they're black and you're renting them a lot. That's how we're in Lewes. And so I do think that I'm just hearing this, oh, how much money you're gonna cost us? You're gonna cost us money. Well, you know, there's lots of money. And you guys have a whole lot more money than we have. And we want to stay here, and we're going to stay here, whether you annex us or not. So I'm not confused about the money for that horrible, disgusting place we've been living in. I know that it has unpermitted septic right now. I know that's the difference between this. And I'm not confused, like trying to say, we're going to force you to annex. But we've been here. Donovan's been here 60 years. And you need contiguous borders. I'm from a place that did not get annexed in West Virginia. And the whole place grew around it, structured, safe, and clean. And our little town refused to annex. And it is horrible. So please do not let this, because it's, 5,000 meters from the beach as a crow flies. If we're unstructured, we could be dangerous to you. If we are structured, which we all want to be, we'll be the best citizens that we've always been. We take care of our lots. We clean our homes. We take care of our things. Separate that, please, from management. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss, just one question.
Okay, let's,
They know what I'm
going
saying.
forward, if we could stop
I've walked
halfway.
and knocked on everybody.
That was a lot of information.
Right.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to summarize.
I think you might.
Como ella es representante del, yo digo que la comunidad la conoce, ella quiere que se haga la anexación, que tengan agua limpia, que tengan alcantarillas limpias, porque ahorita ya hay más de 20 años que no tienen agua limpia corriendo allí, que esa misma agua y alcantarillas que ustedes tienen en sus parqueaderos va hacia el mar. Toda esa basura, todo eso, y ella lo que está tratando de decirles, ella lo único que está escuchando es dinero aquí, dinero allá. Ellos quieren, ella nomás lo que está forzando es de que pues se sientan como una comunidad y sean parte, quieren ser parte de la comunidad para que también representen, así como todavía sean anexados o no, van a ser parte de Lewes.
The other thing is that we are located on the headland of Canary Creek, which is part of Ebenezer Branch. I have personally picked out trash since 2009. Old BB Hospital is there. We've got a car that's completely submerged. you know, what I like to think that us planting out there and cleaning since 2009 are the reasons the herons are back, because they were not there when we first moved there. So that, we have to take care of this environment. And I am sorry that KDM bought it and treated it like dirt. But we are people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So go ahead and translate, and then we'll get to your
There's a question, ma'am.
Well,
Just 1 second, okay.
wait a minute.
Yes.
Ella lo único que quiere decir es de que ella desde el 2009 ha estado limpiando esa área y gracias a lo que ha limpiado ella siente que los pájaros, los herons han regresado a esa área, han estado volando más animales, más naturaleza y lo único que quiere es de que se sientan incluidos.
Okay.
Question.
This is not the cost. The issue is the sewer and water is one component of it. There, as you know, there are electric issues
Yes,
and
we
there are
do.
stormwater issues.
Yes,
and
we do.
We as a town don't know what those additional things will cost. That's one.
We understand that.
The other part of the cost that you heard, when you heard dollars and cents, is the cost that will be borne by you. Additional tax, additional fees that will come to you as annexed in. I just wanted to be clear that that was the case.
It cannot be worse than having to pay rent and live with sewage around you, okay? That can't be worse.
Thank you very much. Let her finish and we'll get to you, okay?
Solo,
Okay, thank you.
Solo que lo que dijo el consejo es de que él entiende que sí han hablado de dinero. Lo que él nomás quiere aclarar es de que aparte de las alcantarillas y la agua, ellos están aceptando, si aceptarían el proyecto completo, no sabrían qué problemas tendrían con problemas de inundaciones o problemas de electricidad en lo que es el parqueadero completo. Pero él al avisar hace ratito cuando estaban diciendo de dinero, él estaba hablando de costos que ustedes como residentes recibirían. Pero como dijo la señora, no importa si subirían un tanto de costo, pero tuvieran agua limpia y alcantarillas limpias.
You come to the microphone if you're going to talk, and identify yourself and give us your address, please.
Diga su nombre y su dirección.
Mi nombre es Clara Ramírez.
Please identify yourself.
She's trying.
Okay, just a
Ah,
okay.
Vivo en el 16385, vivo en Donovan Smith. Bueno, yo estoy de acuerdo con la doña que ella dice, pues si el costo subiría para nosotros, pues por ejemplo pagar el agua, no sé, mes a mes, a cada 2, 3 meses, no sé, pero por lo menos tuviéramos agua limpia. Por lo menos yo tengo mis hijos, veo el bienestar de mis hijos. Yo pienso que ahí en el parqueadero muchas familias tenemos hijos. El futuro del país son los niños. ¿Y por qué no brindarles algo mejor a ellos más que nada? Nosotros pues igual ya estamos la mitad de nuestra vida, pero nuestros hijos. Entonces le pediría de favor que
Sí.
si pudieran tomar la mejor decisión que ellos pueden.
So her statement is that as a community, as they mentioned earlier, she agrees with having, even if it's an increased cost, but if the cost is to get clean water and clean sewage system she's a mom, she has children, like the community, there's a lot of children in that area. So the children are the future, and if it's a better living for families, it's worth the cost. And like she said, she doesn't mind the cost. She doesn't, as a community, I think they've come down to it, and they've agreed that the kids are the future, and what's more important than trying to get the best for your families.
Okay, thank you. What was her name? Let's get her name.
¿Su nombre otra vez?
Name and address.
Clara Ramírez. Clara Ramírez. Vivo
Clara
en el
Ramírez.
16385 en Donovan.
16.
Llevo 7, 8 años.
85.
Sí.
¿Y cómo se llama la calle?
Sí.
Donovan Road.
Sí. Sí, Donovan.
Is it Ramirez?
Ramirez.
385 Donovan Road.
6285?
She's actually on Donovan Road? Or,
Donovan Road.
Sí, ahí en el parqueadero de Donovan.
Grandview. Okay, great.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. 1 second, sir.
Ya,
Ok, gracias y que
Thank
tenga
you.
buena noche.
Thank you.
This is very emotional. Sorry. A lot of people, thanks for your time. And,
Let's identify yourself, please, sir.
So my name is Celso. I live in 16331 Seneca Street in Lewes. I'm nervous. I've never been a speaker before. So we have people, we have kids. And as you do, we want the best for our kids. And like I said, touch your heart and feel our pain. Let our kids live in a safe environment. I work in town. We provide you food, like they say, and we want the best for our kids. Thanks for your time again, and I hope you make the right decision.
Thank you.
The money is not a problem. We can pay it. We find the money. We're here to work. You know. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that him? Would you want to translate that, please? Just
So
1
nomás-
second while we translate that one. Oh, you can stay there.
No más rápidamente, como él dice, es un momento emocional, todos tienen hijos, todos quieren lo mejor para sus familias. Así como pueden trabajar en la comunidad y pueden hacer cosas para la comunidad, que también los aceptan adentro de esta annexación, aparte de que así sea el costo, ustedes trabajan, ustedes pagarán y buscarán manera para proveer para sus familias.
Okay, thank you, please.
My name is Xiomara. I live in 16331 in Seneca Street, same place at Celso. So we are a family. I just want to talk to, in the name of the Hispanic and people in the community. We are always afraid of talk in public, but like the same of they say, we are families. We are hard workers. If we came to this country, is to be better, and be better for our family in this country too. So now this country, your country, is the same as our kid country. We every single day we are hard working for all the future now. So I just want to talk that it doesn't matter what is the cost of the annexation or the works around there. Just we want to be annexing to the city.
So, como ella está
No,
anunciando...
I said I
Oh.
maybe I said this.
Yeah,
No, sí,
say it
sí lo
yourself.
recuerdo.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
Igual lo mismo, son una familia, una comunidad, quieren lo mejor para su comunidad, para su familia. Al final de cuentas, sea el costo que sea, son unas personas trabajadoras que vienen a este país a trabajar, vienen a este país a hacer lo mejor y quieren lo mejor para sus familias. Y por eso están aquí presentes.
Okay. All right. We've got several people. Fred, I'll get to you. Sir, would you like to come up and identify yourself, please? And your address.
My name is Richard Hoffel Jr. I live at 34118 Central Avenue. And we've been living in this park now for over 5 years. We have never drank the water because it's not capable. I mean, we wash clothes, they come out the same way that they, you know, when you put them in. The water smells like sewer all the time. And we've been buying bottled water for 5 years because of the condition of the water. And it's well water. So if it's in our water, it's in everybody's water because it's groundwater. And I really feel that this needs to be done because health-wise, I don't think it's good for anybody to be drinking any bad water. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Como el señor anunció, ustedes que viven y son residentes del parqueadero sabrán pues que esa agua huele feo, no se puede tomar. El señor es residente allí ya 5 años y han estado comprando agua en botella por 5 años porque pues no se puede tomar. Aparte lava ropa y sale y huele igual. Lo que él quiere, que sean parte de esta anexación, que sean parte de este proyecto, que tomen en consideración pues todas sus dudas, porque pues no pueden seguir viviendo así.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, behind. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Sharon Ash. I live in Donovan Smith, 16316 Grandview Street. And today was a beautiful spring day. And the air in our community was rancid. It was overwhelming. I am now sick with a sore throat, as I usually get, water in my right ear, and a headache. I've dealt most of the day, this is on record, I woke up this morning with a pond of septic water laying inches above the ground with the grass waving in it, right next to my house, and another one on full alarm right across from my house. Now, it was like fighting an army to get attention and to have these tanks pumped properly. I have an advertisement here. Mr. Parody has been named a super lawyer of 2022. Well, I'm here to tell you we have a super community and a super mayor. And we will always remember how you came out and you listened and you toured. If any one of you would like to tour our neighborhood on a beautiful spring day, you'll find it overwhelming. You'll have to hold your mouth and nose. So the water was, the septic in 4 tanks was pumped today, but that's how I spent my day when I had many other things to do. A lot of us are having to replace our appliances because of the sediment and the poor water. It's burning out our hot water heaters, and it's clogging and corrupting our plumbing. We have an underrated electrical issue. These poles, when I closed 9 years ago in Seaford office of KDM, Lewes, wonderful Lewes, Board of Public Works trucks were pulling out. They had updated all the transformers, and we were promised by Donovan Smith that their electrical grid would be updated along with Lewis's. To date, nothing has happened except the wires are worn, the poles are rotten, they can't even be leaned against, they move. And we have constant electrical surges within our house. And because of the nature of the architecture, this community could burn up in 10 minutes. I thank you so much.
Thank you for taking
Good
time to
day.
speak to us. Thank you.
Como ella anunció y como muchos pueden entenderla, su comunidad hoy fue un día muy bonito y pues salió para afuera y olía muy hermoso, como ella dijo. El olor pues era pues cualquier olor que alguien no quisiera oler en un día hermoso que podrían salir a caminar. En vez de ir a hacer sus quehaceres hoy, tuvo que llamar a que compusieran el laguito de agua que estaba fuera de su casa del séptico que tenía. Y como ella dice que hace 9 años cuando ella entró a la comunidad, acaban de poner electricidad nueva. Y ahorita puede decir que todo lo que le prometieron cuando entró no se ha hecho. Que si de veras quisieran el parqueadero se podría quemar en 10 minutos basado a las fallas eléctricas que tienen las casas allí.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Fred? Oh, let's let Fred, let this woman speak. Okay, Fred, come on up.
Fred Beaufait, 6 Blue Heron Drive, Lewes. Mayor, City Council, I appreciate having this opportunity to speak to you about the annexation of Donovan Smith Manufactured Home Park in the city. I've read that 2 council members have doubts about this annexation, but I ask that you keep an open mind and urge that you consider the issues before you, and that you have heard what the residents have had to say and what the owner has had to say. This is a special case. We're talking about our neighbors, 90 or more, who live in a development that allows them affordable housing. Neighbors who came to the council in 2017 asking for help. The septic system that served their homes was failing, creating unhealthy living conditions. After investigating the pros and cons of the issue and considering the responsibility of the city as a citizen of our state, Mayor and City Council made the decision to proceed with the annexation process, bringing Donovan Smith Park into the city. This decision, made in 2018 by the council, was a commitment that was made in good faith to the residents of Donovan Smith Park, to BPW, and to the state. After 4 years of work on the part of the city, BPW, and the state, the objective is within reach. As you know, there is no limit in how long an annexation process may take. Keep that in mind. The work that has been done before now on this project should not and cannot be dismissed. We're here tonight to talk about bringing the annexation process to closure. The council made the council that initiated the process did its due diligence in studying the pros and cons. The BPW has put the infrastructure in place. The state is providing funds, and the property owner has requested annexation. The process has been followed. The final step in this process is for council to reaffirm the commitment to annex Donovan Smith Park. The work done over the past 4 years is valid and cannot be disregarded. To deny annexation at this point, or even delay the process, would be, I believe, a monumental mistake, tarnishing the reputation of our city. So let me ask, after 4 years of work, is the City of Lewes going to abandon its neighbors? During denying annexation, you will be ignoring the state's express desire to help the residents of Donovan Smith Park and rejecting the state's offer to fund this last phase of the project. And if you do abandon the commitment, you shouldn't expect the state to support future requests from the city for funding. In addition, if an annexation is denied, the owner of the development has made it clear that he will simply not accept BPW services, leaving the septic system in place. We cannot expect BPW to treat one customer one way and another customer another way. They have to be consistent. And the residents of Donovan Smith Park will be the victims of these decisions. I find it hard to believe that the people of Lewes would walk away from fellow Delawareans who would benefit from being a part of Lewes. I believe that annexation will have no adverse impact on the city and poses no liability for the city. Ultimately, it will have a positive impact on the lives of our neighbors. Any perceived difficulties resulting from the annexation can surely be resolved with bold, creative solutions. Just consider how the city and Abbott Park work together to improve their situation. In closing, I'm asking you to honor, to respect a commitment that a duly elected city council made in 2018 and to approve the annexation of Donovan Smith Park. It is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead and interpret if you can.
Can you
But
give her-
summarize it.
Do you have it in writing?
We have it in writing, you can work.
I
Okay.
summarize it.
Yeah, summarize it.
Okay.
And we, you know.
So, basado en lo que el señor está poniendo desde que en el 2018, cuando el consejo de aquí de Lewes aprobó seguir con el proyecto de anexación, ellos hicieron un compromiso. Al hacer ese compromiso de buena fe de ayudar a los residentes de Donovan, después de 4 años de trabajo de la ciudad, del estado, de las áreas públicas, no se ha llegado al objetivo de la anexación y no deberían de no seguir con el proyecto. Él lo que quiere que consideren que ustedes como residentes, ellos se han comprometido de poder ayudarlos, de poder construir una área vivible. En febrero, todos los partidos dijeron y llegaron a un acuerdo de seguir con el proyecto. El consejo inició con el proyecto basado en las ventajas y desventajas del proyecto. Él nomás quiere reafirmar de que ellos se comprometieron con el grupo de Donovan Smith Park. El trabajo que se ha hecho en estos últimos años, que no lo echen a la basura y lo hagan inválido. Él la pregunta a ellos, después de 4 años, ¿a poco van a abandonar a sus vecinos? ¿Van a abandonar a la comunidad y los van a dejar sin que tengan algún valor? Él de veras cree que si ignoran este proyecto y lo dejan a un lado, que en un futuro no vengan con otros proyectos aquí al consejo basado a esto. Él lo que quiere es que honran y respeten a lo que ellos habían dicho en el 2018 en el comité de la ciudad de Lewes. Es lo que es correcto para todos, serían parte de la comunidad, así como siguen siendo parte en este momento, nomás que pues los están dejando en un lado.
Thank you. Andrew, you had a question?
Yeah, Mr. Buffet, if all the study that you previously did and the request for annexation bore out, why didn't the council vote at that point to annex in Donovan Smith?
I'm sorry, but I didn't understand. My hearing's not the best anymore.
If your study showed that it was a good idea and you had all of the letters for requesting annexation, you'd done the study, why didn't the previous council vote to annex Donovan Smith in at that time?
The previous council vote was unanimous, and we did do all the studies. We had public hearings. Each of the committees had public members. We met in public. We heard what the people had to say, and we found that the pros far outweighed the cons. It is not a matter of money.
I understand, Mr. Buffet. That happened in 2018, correct?
Pardon?
You concluded your study in
Yes,
2016.
2018.
18, sorry. So why didn't you vote in 2019 or to annex them in?
At that point in time, there were still issues that we were working out.
And what were those issues?
To be honest, I don't recall. There were financial issues on the part of Donovan Smith Park. There were issues with BPW in terms of getting the design and the cost that took place.
But the considerations were simply around as you said, the pros and cons. If the idea to annex them in was good, then you could have moved forward, correct?
Sir, I believe we moved as fast as you could. But this is a special case, a special situation. There were efforts with state agencies. There were continuing discussions. It wasn't that people were just sitting around wasting time. It was an effort on the part of the city, BPW, and the state.
But you're suggesting that you had the benefit of studying it deeply, and we have the benefit of relying on your study.
I'm saying that a duly elected council started and made the decision for annexation. And I believe sincerely that for you to deny it or to delay is inappropriate because there is no time limit. And at this point, we're asking that you reaffirm the annexation and let's get it done. That's all I can say to you, sir.
And I'll go ahead and translate it, and I'll offer a little more information.
Lo que el Consejo pregunta es que si en el 2018 habían llegado a un acuerdo de que todo se podía proceder, ¿por qué no se hizo la anexación en el 2018? Esa es la pregunta del Consejo. Ahora, lo que él respondió es que en el 2018 no es de que nadie estaba contra, todos estaban con el proyecto, pero había problemas, vamos al dinero, de que no tenían los suficientes fondos para seguir con el proyecto y tenían diferentes comités tratando de llegar a un acuerdo en ese entonces.
Okay. I would just add to Fred's comments. Fred's absolutely right. The committee in 2017 did do their due diligence and study the possible annexation. However, at that time, the system for sewer and water had not been designed. It had not been turned. The decision was, is this an appropriate property to annex? So once the recommendation for annexation was achieved, then the BPW and GMB, or the city's engineers, began work on designing the system. The system had not yet been even put to pencil to paper. It was a question of, should we consider annexation? And that was, so then after that, the issue of funding became and how it was going to be paid for was what became the next task. And that led to numerous delays, which brings us to pretty much where we are tonight. So
Lo que dice el alcalde es de que sí, en el 2017 empezó toda esta conversación de anexación. Cuando empezó este proyecto era de anexar lo que era el terreno, no tenía nada que ver con el agua, ni las alcantarillas, ni nada de lo que están hablando hoy en día. De que cuando decidieron la decisión, luego empezaron los problemas de que cómo iban a fundar el proyecto. Como él dice, los puntos del señor aquí presente, los estudios que él ha hecho, de por qué se debe de hacer y quién ha dicho los consejos en estos años, sí tiene razón, pero sí se han agregado ciertas porciones a pasar el tiempo.
thank you. Thank you, Fred. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. My name's Carol Parsons. I'm on Seneca Street in Donovan Smith, 16387. Just want to say to everybody, because everybody's writing and looking at their papers, look around this room. Look at the people that you see behind me. You'll see a lot of gray hair. You'll see a lot of brown. You'll see a lot of black people. You'll see people like me that you're like, where's she fit in? I'm a worker. A lot of us are workers. We're the people that uphold this community. There wouldn't be a tourist trade in Lewes. There wouldn't be all these people coming to visit our beautiful town if there weren't people to wait on the tables, if there weren't people to wait on them in stores, if there weren't people to fix their roofs on their fancy, vacation homes. We're the people that are of lower economic means. Doesn't mean we don't take pride in what we own and that we won't take care of what we own. But we also need something from you people, which we're not getting from Donovan Smith, and that is clean water. The ability to actually flush a toilet while you're doing laundry at the same time without worrying about it backing up in your house. You know, not to feel like, okay, if I drink that water out of the tap, I'm going to end up with cancer or God knows what. When the wind blows in Donovan Smith, they've dug so many things up, that dirt flies into your house. It's contaminated. They spread that contaminated dirt around. We breathe that. We live in that. But we work hard. We're the ones that keep this town going like it is. So we kind of deserve some consideration, I think. And not to mention that, you know, it feels like if Shell Brothers were doing this, it'd be no problem. They'd be annexed into the city in a heartbeat because they'd be selling $500,000 minimum homes, which is probably what's going to happen downtown with above 2 dips when they build those condos. Guaranteed they'll start at least $500,000. I don't think it'll be a problem for anybody saying it's okay for them to be in the town of Lewes. I also believe if we're allowed to have clean water, working septic, that you'll see the people that live there start to take even more pride in their community and start, you know, doing things ourselves, not waiting for KDM to do it, you know, as far as beautifying the park. If we have roads that we can drive down that don't rip the transmissions out of the bottom of our cars as we're driving down them. These are all things that just as humans, as voters and as citizens that we deserve. And we're just asking for your help to help us get that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lo que ella está anunciando es de que como una comunidad merecen tener todo el derecho como cualquier otro residente de la ciudad. Merecen poder cuidar sus casas sin tener que esperar la ayuda del dueño del parqueadero o de que vengan a poder arreglar ciertas cosas, como ustedes como dueños puedan tener la habilidad de tener orgullo de donde viven. Ella en general es como dice, ustedes son una comunidad de que pudieran manejar en carreteras que no van a destrozar sus carros, poder tener calles limpias, agua que corre, alcantarillas que no huelen, que puedan tener sus ventanas abiertas sin que huela o contamine la tierra que está volando en el aire. Ella dice, así como todos ustedes son residentes de esta ciudad, ustedes vienen a trabajar así como los aceptan como trabajadores en sus restaurantes, acomodar los techos bonitos de las casas de playa, que también los acepten en esta annexación como residentes. Y es como ella dice, si fuera una compañía de Shell Brothers o fuera la comunidad de condominios que van a hacer en la ciudad, a ellos no les van a decir nada porque ellos van a pagar $500,000 por un lugar donde vivir. So que los tomen en consideración como seres humanos.
Thank you. I think you had one more comment back here. Yes. Please come up again.
Thank you. A little arthritis in my knee.
Okay.
Yeah. Ted, good to see you.
Thank you.
My name is Donna Rose, and I live at 18G Cooper Circle. And I just want to let the city of Lewes know that if there's any additional water or sewer, I would be happy to pay it. I think you're worth it. I think the city of Lewes is a lovely place. I've worked here for 20 years, and I love it here. So if there's any additional charges, I'd be so happy to pay.
Thank you.
I just want to let you know that. And Ted, I'm so glad that your surgery was a success.
Thank you.
I was praying for you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good to see you, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nomás está anunciando de que ella como residente, sea el costo que sea, si quiere hay agua limpia y alcantarillas limpias, ella lo pagaría con mucho gusto.
Okay. So, is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? We have some questions on the in our.
There's only one.
There's only one in the chat. Okay, sir, let's hear from you first, and then we'll get to the chat question. Looks like you brought your daughter along.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Douglas Monterrosa. La dirección es 16355 Seneca Street.
16355.
Correcto.
16355. ¿Cuál es la calle?
Seneca Street.
Oh, Seneca, okay.
Y pues apoyar a mis compañeros que acaban de hablar con respecto al agua potable. Ahorita le acabo de hacer a mi niña, voy a ir a apoyar para que tengas agua potable, para que puedas tomar, le digo yo. Me dice ella, no le digas, aquí hay agua, me dice, y le cargo su pechinguita a ella, que es por 3 años que hemos hecho esto, pero ellos no tienen el cuidado cuando uno no los está viendo, ellos solo van a tomar agua, a encender el chorro, y eso no pasa solo con mi niña, me imagino yo que con todos los niños pequeños, que el día de mañana, pues, ellos son los que van a pagar las consecuencias de esto. Está en sus manos hacerlo. Y apoyar la anexión, el día de mañana, quien se lo va a recompensar es Dios. Gracias.
Thank you.
What he is just trying to mention is that he was told his daughter that he was coming here to support the community, and that he was coming here so they would be able to have clean water and clean sewage. And that his daughter was like, well, why if we have bottled water? But he said, like the one mentioned, him having a child, he's not, you know, and us as parents, and like probably parents in the room, you have kids that sometimes open up, say, a hose and drink water out of, you know, while they're taking a shower. They don't know better. You know, we don't know what consequences they will have in the future for drinking that dirty water, what health issues they might have. So he is just asking you as a council to take it as much consideration, since it's in your hands to make it a good decision for not just his child, but everyone in the community.
Thank you. Okay, before we go to the chat, is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Okay. Amber, you want to read the question?
Yes, so I have a comment from Deborah Evalds, 10 Harborview Road. The testimony from the residents of the park is heartbreaking. It is a disgrace that Sussex County has let this situation go on so long without intervention and relief. Morally, I do not see how we can ignore this situation right at our border. The residents cannot live like this in filth and squalor, so close to a town with great resources. While the financial impact is a concern, I think the public health and environmental issues are larger concerns. I support annexation. It is simply wrong to ignore Donovan Smith on both human and environmental grounds. We must understand what an environmental hazard this is to the park residents, to our groundwater here, to the Canary Creek watershed, and to neighbors here in the City of Lewes. I hope that the City of Lewes can acquire funds for environmental cleanup from the state and Sussex County. I also request that further studies be done by DNREC to see how widespread the impact of this pollution is on Canary Creek. Annexation of Donovan Smith Manufactured Home Park also adheres to our comprehensive plan as it provides workforce housing. I also agree that BPW must provide support and services to our communities on our border equally, just as they are running services up New Road for upscale homes. Please annex Donovan Smith MHP to protect our neighbors in the park, our groundwater, and our environmental resources. We have the power to save this community and improve it. It is the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Como entendieron, la señora dice que es una desgracia. La señora Debra dice que después de escuchar todos los testimonios ahorita de los residentes del parque, pues le rompe el corazón que esta situación ha llegado a tan lejos después de tanto tiempo, no haber ni una intervención ni un alivio para ustedes los residentes. Moralmente esta situación es desagradable que lo hayan ignorado tanto tiempo siendo frontera ustedes del parqueadero de aquí de la ciudad. Dice que ella, aunque ella entiende que financieramente es un impacto, hay también otras cosas que ver. Puede afectar la salud pública, puede afectar los alrededores, no nomás de las aguas de ustedes, pero el agua con el tiempo no saben cómo les está afectando a otras áreas alrededor del parque de Donovan. Ella espera y pide que haya fondos para que puedan limpiar los lagos cerca de ustedes, no nomás allí, pero también lagos en las áreas de Lewes. Y que también ayude para poder, lo que es el grupo de Donovan, llegar a un acuerdo para que puedan apoyar y brindarles servicios iguales, así como les dan a las casas nuevas que van entrando a lo que es las ciudades de las fronteras de Lewes, les den las mismas oportunidades a ustedes. Que ojalá tomen en consideración para poder que la comunidad sea mejor.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the room who would care to speak? Yes, sir. Mr. Saunders, come on up.
My name is Sam Saunders, and I'm head of the Homeowners Association at Donovan Smith, and I live at 16338 4th Street. And I want to thank all the residents for coming out tonight. We had a good turnout, and I'm glad everybody came out and had their say. It was really heartwarming to see the neighbors come out in force. And the only thing I want to say is justice delayed is justice denied.
Como muchos de la comunidad de Donovan lo han de conocer, es parte de la Asociación de Casas. Él lo único que quiere es agradecerles a todos presentes por haber venido y salido a dar apoyo a su comunidad. Y eso era lo único que necesitaba decir, y aparte pues que haga justicia por lo que ustedes han vivido.
Okay, one more time. Is there anyone else who would care to speak tonight? Looks like there's nothing in the chat, correct?
I'm sorry, I just don't know your practice. Is it your practice to give the applicant a last word?
Yes, of course. Mr. Pardee, would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the residents said it all. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So I would note that this consideration will be taking place by the City Council on April 14th. And that will happen at 6 o'clock?
I didn't get confirmation from
Is that agreeable
everybody.
with everyone? Okay. 6 o'clock on the 14th. We will keep the record open. If anyone wishes to make a written comment, they can make a written comment until noon on Friday. 6 o'clock on the 14th. And that will be here in this room, correct?
And what is the purpose of that meeting?
It's a vote on the...
That is for the council
vote?
vote on the
Yes.
annexation. Yes. That.
Where is it? Going to be
It will be in council chambers.
at City Hall.
Is there a reason why we're not doing it here?
We could do it here.
I think it's probably better to do it here. Let's do it here. We'll do it here. We'll do it here in this room. Okay?
Yeah. So, why don't you translate what the mayor said about it?
Thanks, Ben. 14. 6 o'clock. Here.
In public comments, noon on Friday.
I didn't,
For this hearing.
Anne Marie sent out the notice.
Thank you.
We will not be taking any comment.
Just go ahead and...
Okay, is there anything else to bring forward here tonight? He wants...
And if we could ask everyone just to be quiet and give us
Yes,
just
if
one
we could
moment.
just hold down the chatter for a few minutes while we finish summing up. Dennis?
Could I just ask a question? Monday is the 11th. Isn't that the mayor and council meeting, or is it
This would be
changed
a
to the
special
14th?
meeting. No, this would be a special meeting.
Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't realize that.
So we have a small issue
Okay.
on the time, which we're going to have to work out.
Okay.
But we know that the meeting will, why don't you just say we know the meeting will occur next week?
14th.
Is it the 14th or is it another day?
She works on Thursday evenings.
Okay.
So we don't have translation services without
Well,
her.
we're not going to be taking comments, are we?
We'll not be taking
It's
comments.
really going to be yes or
Right.
no.
Yeah, okay.
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 So I would just go ahead and announce it that it's going to be on the 14th.
El día 14 a las 6 de la tarde, en este mismo lugar, tomarán votación el consejo. Si tienen algún comentario o alguna pregunta que necesiten, tiene que estar escrita y entregada a lo que es el consejo para este viernes, no más tardar de 12 de mediodía. Okay.
So quickly, for council's benefit, the reason you're not taking this up for a vote on Monday is that the state code requires a 30-day comment period, which started from March 14th when you set so that's the reason we can't have it at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
We
Is there,
make a motion?
yeah, so we need if there's nothing further to bring forward, we're going to need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion and a second, but before we take the vote on it, I just want to thank our interpreter, thank you, our translator, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For being here. And I want to thank all of you for taking over 2 hours of your evening to be here tonight to talk with us and share your
Les quiero agradecer a todos por tomar 2 horas de su tiempo esta noche para venir y apoyar a su comunidad, y los espera para la otra semana.
Thank you.
¿Qué?
Mi nombre es Leonardo. Bueno, mi esposa no pudo venir ahora, ¿verdad? Por el trabajo. Gracias por su tiempo y por traducirnos.
Con gusto.
Y es verdad, como todos somos vecinos y apoyamos a la comunidad. Y espero pues nos tomen en cuenta, ¿no? Porque es verdad, tenemos hijos y trabajamos. Y ellos también. Que ellos nos tomen en cuenta pues, como comunidad y vecinos. Gracias.
So he just wants to thank me for coming in and translating for them, as well as for you guys taking the time to consider and take in motion what everyone here as residents has taken in.
Thank you very much. Okay, we need we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for being here.
It's going directly to Janelle. You're going to watch the transfer because I will lose it.
It did.